those. October 1st, 2022. Football match in East Java. 135 people died. But here's the kicker. They didn't die because of some freak accident or structural collapse or anything like that. They died because the police tried to help. I'm talking about people who went to watch their team play on a Saturday night and never made it home. Families, kids, regular folks who just wanted to see some football. And the more I've dug into this, the more I've realized something pretty disturbing. Sometimes the most dangerous person in a crisis isn't the troublemaker. It's the guy with the badge who thinks he knows how to fix things. This is the Kanjuruhan Stadium tragedy. And honestly, the official story makes less sense the more you think about it. Okay, so first thing you need to know about Indonesian football, it's absolutely mental. Like, imagine the most intense sports rivalry you know, then multiply it by 10 and add some serious tribal warfare vibes. We're talking about Arema FC versus Persebaya Surabaya. These aren't just football teams, they're basically ethnic identities. People plan their weddings around match schedules. Families get split down the middle. It's Yankees-Red Sox, but with the emotional intensity of a civil war. So October 1st rolls around, and Kanjuruhan Stadium is packed. And when I say packed, I mean dangerously packed. They sold over 42,000 tickets for a stadium that holds 38,000 people. Basic math says that's a problem, right? But apparently nobody in charge thought this through. Now here's what's wild. Everyone knew this match was going to be explosive. The police knew it, the organizers knew it, hell, probably half of Indonesia knew it. These teams have history, their fans have history, and when you put them in the same space, things tend to get messy. So my question is, if everyone saw this coming, why was nobody actually prepared for it? All right, so Arema FC loses at home to their biggest rivals in front of 42,000 of their own fans. If you know anything about football culture, you know that's not just a loss. That's a humiliation that's going to sting for years. So what happens next? About 3,000 fans storm the pitch. Bottles start flying. People are yelling at players, getting in their faces. Now, I'm not saying this is okay, but let's be real. This is pretty standard stuff for Indonesian football. It's not good, but it's not exactly unprecedented either. But then someone made a decision that changed everything. Inspector General Nico Afinta, he's the East Java police chief, gives an order. His guys are going to use tear gas to clear the crowd. Now here's where this gets really weird. And I want you to stick with me on this because it's important. FIFA, you know, the people who run world football, they have this rule about crowd control in stadiums. Actually, it's not even really a rule. It's more like a fundamental law. No tear gas. Ever. Period. Why? Because enclosed spaces plus chemical agents equals death trap. This isn't rocket science. It's basic physics. You spray tear gas in a confined area with thousands of people, and people are going to die trying to get out. So, here's my first big question. Why did experienced police officers, dealing with what was essentially a routine pitch invasion, choose literally the one method that's banned everywhere in the world? But wait, it gets weirder. They didn't just spray the pitch to clear out the fans who were causing trouble. They fired tear gas into the stands, into the areas where regular people were sitting. Families with kids, elderly folks, people who weren't part of any invasion, they just wanted to watch football. Put yourself there for a second. You're in your seat. Maybe you've got your kid with you. And suddenly the air around you becomes poison. Your eyes are burning. You can't breathe. Everyone's screaming and trying to run. Where do you go? The exits, right? Except here's the thing that still gives me chills. The exits were locked. I'm not talking about some of the exits. I'm talking about emergency exits. The doors that are literally designed to save your life in exactly this situation, locked shut while people were dying trying to get through them. The stampede that happened next wasn't just predictable. With tear gas in the air and no way out, it was guaranteed. So after 135 people die, obviously there's going to be an investigation, right? And the police have their story ready. Goes like this. Unruly fans invaded the pitch, became violent, started attacking officers. The tear gas was a last resort to restore order and protect everyone's safety. The deaths were tragic, but unavoidable, result of crowd panic, overcrowding, and exits that, hey, weren't really their responsibility anyway. Sounds reasonable, doesn't it? Clean, logical, explains everything. Except it doesn't explain why cops who've dealt with football crowds their entire careers suddenly forgot the most basic rule of stadium safety. It doesn't explain why they gassed people who weren't even part of the problem. And it really doesn't explain what happened to the command structure that night. Because here's what's fascinating about the aftermath. When people started getting arrested and put on trial, guess who took the fall? Not Inspector General Afinta. He kept his job. Not any of the higher-ups who would have actually made these decisions. Nope. 3 unnamed lower-ranking officers got charged with negligence. 3 guys out of an entire police operation took responsibility for 135 deaths. But then something interesting happened. Indonesia's Supreme Court, and these aren't exactly people known for challenging police authority, they overturned some of the acquittals. Suddenly, officers who'd been cleared were getting prison sentences, 2 to 2.5 years each. So what changed? What new evidence showed up, or what pressure got applied, that made the same actions suddenly criminal when they weren't before? Nobody's saying. This is where things get really frustrating, because the deeper you dig into Kanjuruhan, the more obvious it becomes that we're not getting the whole story. Like, who actually gave the order to use tear gas? I keep hearing Afinta was in charge, but come on, police forces don't work that way. Someone up the chain made a decision that night to violate international safety protocols. Who was it? And why aren't they in prison? And who locked those exits? Emergency doors don't lock themselves. Someone made a conscious choice to secure those exits, knowing that 42,000 people might need to use them. That's not an oversight. That's a decision. Who made it? Here's another one that bugs me. Why was the stadium oversold by 5,000 tickets? That's not some clerical error. That's a systematic choice to put more bodies in seats than the building can safely handle. But somehow, in all these investigations and trials, this angle just disappeared. And the big one, if this really was just a series of unfortunate mistakes, why did it take Indonesia's Supreme Court to get even basic accountability? Why did the first trials end in acquittals that had to be overturned by people higher up the food chain? Want to know what really keeps me up about this? Kanjuruhan isn't some isolated incident. It's just the worst example of something that happens all the time in Indonesian football. Police overreacting to crowd trouble, safety measures that exist on paper but not in reality, stadiums packed beyond capacity. This stuff is routine. The only difference is that usually people don't die in numbers that make CNN. But October 1st, 2022, everything went wrong at once. Overcrowding, locked exits, banned crowd control methods, emergency response that might as well have been non-existent, and a police force that seemed more interested in showing who's boss than actually protecting anyone. The families of the victims started this movement called #UsutTuntas, basically means investigate thoroughly. And they've been asking the questions that make officials uncomfortable. Why were kids found dead with chemical burns in their lungs? Why were people crushed against doors they should have been able to open? Slowly, some answers have come out. Not from the official investigations, those were pretty much useless, but from independent groups, human rights organizations, journalists who wouldn't let it go. And what they found is that the tear gas wasn't some split-second panic decision. It was part of how Indonesian police routinely handle football crowds, like they're enemy combatants instead of, citizens who paid to watch sports. Here's what's really slick about how this got handled. There wasn't a traditional cover-up. Nobody denied people died. Nobody claimed it never happened or blamed foreign terrorists or whatever. Instead, they did something way more sophisticated. They acknowledged the tragedy, expressed all the right sympathies, promised investigations and reforms, and then made sure responsibility landed on the lowest-ranking people they could find. It's not a cover-up. It's accountability theater. A few mid-level cops got prison time. Some football officials got blamed for the overcrowding. But the people who actually created the policies and procedures that made this inevitable, the ones who built a system where this kind of tragedy was basically guaranteed to happen eventually, they're still in charge. And that's maybe the most messed up part of this whole thing, because it means everything that went wrong, the overcrowding, the banned tactics, the locked exits, the culture where authority matters more than human life, all of that is still there. Still waiting for the next match, the next crisis, the next time someone decides that controlling a crowd is more important than the people in it. So here we are, 2+ years later, and we know the basic facts. 135 people died. Tear gas was used illegally. Exits were locked. Stadium was dangerously overcrowded. But the big questions, the ones that might actually prevent this from happening again, nobody wants to touch those. Who in the police hierarchy authorized tactics that FIFA explicitly bans? Why were emergency exits locked against the people they were supposed to save? And in a country where football is practically a religion, why are the people protecting fans the same ones treating them like enemies? The families are still waiting for real answers. Indonesian football fans are still waiting. And somewhere tonight, there's probably another overcrowded stadium, same dangerous policies, same police mentality, just waiting for the right spark. You know what really gets me? It's not whether something like Kanjuruhan will happen again. It's whether anyone with the power to stop it actually gives a damn.